Hey, welcome. Hello. It's time for Block Talk. We're on Bitcoin block 475.979. Yeah, just going pretty good through this difficulty block here. Yeah, the mempool is not looking too bad. We're not too much clogging on the network. It's all going good. Forecast is looking pretty good for the future. We'll see if we get some resolution to this Bitcoin madness that's going on. Our sponsors for the show today, Bittrex, based in Seattle. These guys are the premier experts in security, backing from Microsoft and Amazon. They actually started like the cyber security task force with those two groups. And they have an amazing marketplace to trade your altcoins. Not only do they have an extensive amount of Bitcoin pairs, they've just launched Ethereum pairings. So you are able to trade whatever currency to your fancy. Yeah, so sign up today at bittrex.com. Our other sponsor is CoinCards. So they accept over 40 different cryptocurrencies using things like Bitcoin and what's that service? Shapeshift, that's it. So yeah, you can shop with your cryptos at over 100 Canadian retailers. They have electronic delivery of a lot of these gift cards, so sometimes they show up same day. Mike is very punctual with filling orders, and yeah, I actually managed to spend a little bit at Newegg and Amazon, and my Home Depot card showed up early last week. So yeah, coincards.ca, best place for Canadians to go to kind of cash out, and it's a really great service. And so, hi everyone, I am Alex. Thank you for joining us in the basement today. We got a great audience here. And we got a great guest, too, on the show today. We have the Decentraland team. So I have Zen with me, Rick Side. Thank you for joining us. And he's actually filming in 360 over there, too. So we can have that probably on the channel as well. And we got the rest of the team. So we have Ari. What's up, Ari?
Hey, thanks for having us here, Alex.
Thank you for joining us. And we have the rest of your team. We have Esteban.
Hi, Alex. Nice to be around.
Thank you for joining us. And we have Yamil. Did I pronounce that right?
Hi there. It's great to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So I guess I should probably go to Ari for this because he's the lead guy. But could you guys explain for us briefly what is Decentraland?
Sure. Okay, so Decentraland is an open platform that allows anyone to create and monetize VR content in a shared virtual world. What this means for users is that anyone can own a piece of virtual land and create applications on top of it. What's interesting about Decentraland is that we use a smart contract on the Ethereum network to keep track of who owns what, keeping a permanent record of ownership. This is important because it's decentralized, meaning no one can take away your land, modify or censor your content. Basically, it's your land, your rules, which drastically differs from the approach of all other virtual worlds.
So I guess this is not something that has just come out of nowhere. You guys thought about it because, this is such a crazy time of year, people raising lots of money. But you've been working on this since like 2015. This has been a bit of a passion project for a while. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about the history of Decentraland?
Yes, well, back in 2015, we came up with the idea of creating a virtual world that could be explored, where everybody could put content on it and other users would walk into your creations, all the experiences that you could create with virtual realities. So we thought of Decentraland as a metaverse, pretty much similar to the virtual worlds on the Snow Crash novel or the Ready Player One novel. And we didn't want anybody in control of that world. So we wanted land ownership to be backed by a blockchain. And we set up a bunch of experiments to control real estate on a blockchain. The first experiment was the Stone Age clone of the $1 million webpage, where you could own pixels in a website, and those pixels were backed by a blockchain. You could change the colors of them and transfer to other people. A couple of months back, last year actually, we onboarded Ari and Chemel and other members to this passion project that is now turning into a very, very big project. And we added a 3D world that you could explore. We added a BitTorrent implementation to exchange the contents of that world. And we set up a web browser on the web page that you can check out.
So it reminds me a lot of another guest we've had on the show, Andrew from Hunter Coin, where it's kind of like there's like a map that's got kind of the status is stored on the blockchain. Were you guys at all kind of working or looking at the Hunter Coin project and using that to kind of inspire what you're building today, or was it kind of like, where did the seed of this idea really come from?
Oh, we didn't have any other reference in the blockchain space that were creating something like that back in the time. We definitely draw some inspiration from Minecraft and these other novels that I mentioned. But yeah, it was just out of creativity, actually.
When David explained this to me, the first thing I kind of thought of was that one episode of Futurama where they go to the internet, they all like kind of plug in. It's almost like the Matrix in a way, and they see all the storefronts and like there's ads flying around and stuff. I thought it was kind of funny to hear that it's actually being built now. Like, you know, it's the life mirroring art. Pretty cool stuff. So Zen, what do you bring to the project, or what's your role?
I think my role is going to be more towards helping to design the user interface and the user experience. How a regular person can do a very simple capture of a homeroom environment, like their own apartment, and bring that into a decentralized space, a metaverse where you can allow other people to come into your space or start from that starting point to go out and explore virtual reality universes.
Cool. So is that kind of what you guys see as people using the space for, or using the Decentraland for, is kind of having a little place to call their own in the digital world, like a little house, kind of almost like, I don't know, Animal Crossing or something, where
I think personally that it's going to be really surprising to see what people use their space first. I've just noticed that the first thing everybody does when they're first sampling an existing metaverse like Google Earth, where it's a digital copy of an actual world, is the first thing you check is your own address. You want to see what your reference point for you, how you see yourself on the planet, where you start from when you start your journey. So being able to capture your home environment and make that like your home room, your home page for a virtual environment seems like a good starting point.
True. It almost goes back to like the Facebook thing, where it's like people really took to the internet really quickly with Facebook because it was them on the internet. It was like, how do they have a space to call their own, or a page to call their own, and really exist online?
And they did it with just a profile.
Yeah.
And this 3D platform allows you to do it with your favorite space.
So I guess what are the roles with the rest of the team here? So Ari, what sort of role have you taken with the Decentraland team?
Okay, I'm in charge of all the operations, and I'm also in charge of partnerships. A very important role for us from the foundation will be to foster this environment. What's key for Decentraland success will be to align other game developers and artists and people that are usually creating content elsewhere to want to create on top of Decentraland. So what we did in order to incentivize this is to, so by the way, Decentraland is token-based. There's going to be an initial token sale on August 8th, but what I wanted to say is that we are reserving 20% of the total token supply to incentivize game developers and artists and people who are currently trading rare digital assets to come to Decentraland and start building on top of this.
So how are you? I guess you already have like a network existing, right? Like you already have the network from 2015 that was like Bitcoin code, and people were mining it and receiving land already. Is that kind of something that's being transferred over now? You guys are transferring this project. Yeah.
That's correct. So well, the current status of the project is we're in a prototype stage. What we did is taking the open source implementation of a Bitcoin node and modify it and deploy our own blockchain, which is a testnet blockchain. So the land there has no value. And what we build is this world browser that lets you create and explore the creations of other people. It runs on the web and desktop. And also we did an iteration with HTC Vive. What we're aiming to do in the next months will be to migrate to the Ethereum blockchain. Well, create better interfaces for creating content and exploring the world.
Cool. So doing a lot of the changeover work. I guess with Ethereum, you're getting a lot more functionality. You're able to actually store a lot of data on the chain and do tokens beyond just the one in the sale, right? Like you're gonna have in-game assets and stuff. Lots of functionality to take a hold of. Sorry, Yamel, what was your role in the project too? Before I get too off track.
Yeah, of course. So, well, I'm part of the funding team. I'm part of the foundation board. I'm a software engineer myself. I have been working on the Bitcoin space since 2014. First at BitPay and later at ChangeDep. So I have a lot of experience on the blockchain technical side, but also on the product side. So that's my role, helping on the technical side and also on the vision.
Cool. So Esteban, what is your role with the Decentraland project?
Well, besides for being also a founder member, I'm now taking the lead of all the technical aspects of the project, figuring out what technologies are we using, switching over to Ethereum, switching over from using BitTorrent to IPFS, which I think holds great promise in the future, and finding a team to help me with all the technical work that needs to be done.
So I guess kind of take us through the steps of what's happening with the token sale, and how is like everything being oriented? Like, can I buy a corner lot, or am I just buying like a random token? Like, how am I getting the most premier real estate in the virtual environment?
Okay, cool. So the sale will take place on August 8th. At this moment, 40% of the mana supply, which is mana is an ERC20 token, will be auctioned. The way this is going to work is people who buy this token are going to be able to burn definite amounts of mana to claim parcels of land in the world. So for the very first allocation of land, there will be something that we call the terraform event, where we will enable holders of mana to choose their parcel of land. And after this initial allocation, people are going to be able to burn additional mana tokens and claim parcels of land, with the exception that only parcels of land that are adjacent to existing parcels of land are going to be able to be claimed. So where we see this going is that people are going to be able to buy larger plots of land or full mana among many people to buy entire districts and communities, and eventually probably set up their own governance down the road. But there's already a marketplace in place. We partner up with the people at District OX. They have decentralized marketplaces, and one of their first use cases will be to have a place where the community can decide on the rules of how land is transacted. And so it would be sort of like an eBay, where people are going to be able to have their lands up for sale or rental or whatever they decide.
So I guess how are you going to make this order like or not turn into complete chaos? Like how is there going to be roads and established routes? Because it sounds like the map is getting built as people burn. Like it starts as a central point and then grows out from there. It sounds like it will kind of start looking pretty crazy pretty quickly. So what are the plans of kind of to start with?
Yeah, that's a great question actually. Well, we set the date for we didn't decide the date for this Terraform event. It will be this year. We're planning to like lay out the basics of what would be the Genesis town, the first city in Decentraland. So the foundation will create like a basic layout for routes, streets, and like public spaces that belong to the foundation. We will call for content creators to create this like art for the public spaces, and that will be like the first layout, and will be plenty of space for people to claim land in this Genesis town. So that's our idea for how to bootstrap this world. However, if you want, you just can claim a route leading to nowhere and build your own town quite far. We don't have the control of how this world will expand. We only know that it will be connected because of this adjacency constraint.
So Alex, going back to what I was telling you at the beginning, because land is going to be owned by users, and almost the entirety of the land will be in the hand of the users. We're going to have no control over how this develops, and we think this is why Decentraland is interesting. People are eventually going to organize themselves, possibly in groups, and create their own districts and decide themselves how each district should be organized.
So is it only, I guess, when you're claiming land, is it only an X and a Y, or are you thinking about
a model that is completely distributed? We could have a model that is completely pure. We can also have a centralized server in the middle for more efficiency.
Yeah, let me add something, Esteban. The comparison with the web, it's quite direct actually. When you buy a domain, what you are doing is pointing a server online and link it with the domain. In Decentraland, we are doing exactly the same. Once you burn mana to claim land, what you're storing in the blockchain is a link to the description of that parcel of land. And you can place wherever you want. Actually, the protocol says nothing about this definition. So we will develop a standard to describing a world, and also, for example, pointing to a server for communication, like a voice chat and yeah, exactly. So if you want to have your own system for gaming and people interacting inside your land, you can develop that.
Well, so there, at some point in the future, then there could be other clients kind of all referencing the same data, but they're putting their own data on top of it. So like, yeah, so when I'm running on your server, maybe everything is castle themed, but if I run on someone else's server, it's all futuristic themed. Like, those are a lot of the options, I guess.
We each have the ability of creating our own world, and when you enter into my world, it's whatever I want it to be. So it keeps you in that little walled garden, but within mine, I might have portals to let you travel to other places.
Okay, interesting. So can we only build in the space, or can we actually destroy, or is there any metric of like kind of toning back, like, oh, I didn't mean to put a wall there, and now it's stuck there forever? Like, how are we able to, edit the space or even destroy the space?
So what's most important to understand here is that nobody can modify the content in your land. So as I said at the beginning, on top of your land, you're the only person with discretion over what the content is there. And with regards to how the content is built, we're approaching this from two different angles. On the one hand, because we want this to be a product for end consumers and not only for technical people, as is the case today, we're going to replicate some of the user experience that Minecraft provided. So creating a way for people to be able to build stuff being inside of Decentraland without needing any coding skills. But on the other hand, we want to allow for complex applications to be built on top of Decentraland, and for that, Esteban, I think, will give you a better specification.
So using a DFS allows us to have a DHT, allows us to have very fast updates without actually having to hit the blockchain. We store a reference the blockchain to an IPFS address, and you can change the contents of that IPFS address with your very free system of IPNS, the interplanetary naming system, and that will allow you to save a lot of for every little change that you want to make to your land.
So we're pretty short on time. I know you guys have a busy schedule. Is there any other questions in the room here, guys? I don't want to hog all their time.
So I have a question about how do you avoid humanity, like conflicts? I mean, I'm sure you can figure this out along the way, but is there a way that we can learn, so that we wouldn't have another Palestinian-Israeli conflict in your land?
Well, in Decentraland, nobody knows your robot.
Sorry?
You could have bots who serve as police or something like that. But you can also have blocking lists, and you can say, hey, this person is really annoying me, and just censor him from your browser, but other people can know that person.
So in that sense, you can think of how it works on Twitter, where you're able to mute or block people that you don't want to deal with. But as far as conflict resolution, we are not taking a governmental role here, so we're not going to have an active hand on like having the power of a judge to mediate between people.
The bare minimum will probably just be disabling the ability to get too close to another person and giving everyone at least a minimal personal space so that they don't have at least that much fighting. As for anything else, it will probably be very similar to like blocking someone if they cause a problem.
Yeah, and another interesting aspect of that is content filtering. Like, you want Decentraland to be able to be used by anyone, and maybe might have a 10-year-old kid that wants to, probably going to services that filter out the experience, make it accessible for other kids and stuff like that.
Well, I have a bunch of questions, and like the first one, how is it different from, like, is it more Second Life? I think I would address to you since you're part of the team. Is it more Second Life or $1 million page? You know what's I mean, right?
And definitely what you mean by how is it like Second Life. There's a lot of similarities to a platform like Second Life. The ability to create environments and create products and turn around and sell those and have a commerce environment. Creating something that's a virtual environment that everybody can play a role in the creating of the environment itself is I think what separates it the most. the fact that it's not an institution that's created by someone else, but you play a role in creating that land. It's like kind of like the Wild West, where you go out, find and discover and develop your own piece of land and build from scratch.
So in one phrase, it's a decentralized second life.
Sorry?
So if I say it in one phrase, I would say it's like a decentralized second life.
Yeah, maybe a decentralized virtual second life that's based on
And
blockchain.
my second question is, how is it decentralized? Because all this
Second Life had a lot of issues with banning content. They banned gaming from the platform. That drove a lot of users away from the platform. They also actually own the copyrights to your creations and you put in the world. So that would be different on Decentraland. Anybody can censor you, and it cannot change what's possible to do on there.
I think the product you're talking about before when saying Second Life, they went on to make, well, Phil to make High Fidelity, which is an open source version of Second Life, essentially. So anybody can post whatever they want in the connected world.
Yeah,
so the question would be more, is it more like High Fidelity than Second Life?
Not really. The question is, right now, as a technology we have, we cannot achieve a full decentralization. If it's full decentralization, how do you update the client? How do you fix bugs? Who can push the community in a source code if you find a bug? What's happening is, so somebody have a governance, right?
Yeah, that's definitely a question and a topic that gets tossed around a lot. Is there a minimal amount of governance? Is there any at all? Is it completely decentralized, or is it just like on the scale? And I think that's what I've noticed is that seems to be in flux and it kind of changes a little bit based on.
But what is the desired statement of a project?
I think the core founders would probably do better at it.
Could you repeat the question because the sound isn't loud?
Alex, bring you to phrase the question because I have an accent, so I think you better ask that.
Sorry, it's you were asking what is making it distributed.
What's the desired state of a game? Because as I understood right now, it's highly centralized because the project is in a way of development, but they try to achieve more decentralization during time to like develop the project. And my question is, what's the final goal? What's the project we develop in the final project? How is it going to look like?
Okay.
Is it going to be fully decentralized, or it's never going to be fully decentralized?
So what does the final vision of Decentraland look like in terms of like how is it fully distributed and self-sustaining where you guys aren't even needed anymore, maybe at that point?
So right now, anybody can set up a node and set up the web browser and explore Decentraland without us being there. So that's already fully decentralized. In the future, we think that we will always keep that quality that Decentraland.org stops existing. Anybody can run the node and run their browser locally, and the content is all out there, served by their owners. And it's a virtual reality world that exists in a fully decentralized way. That's the conclusion.
Well, thanks for answering, but if it's fully decentralized, how are you going to make governance of this space? Because I can practically just buy a land and put there, I don't know, child pornography, ISIS propaganda stuff, which would automatically make the whole project illegal.
Well, this is where Aragorn comes in, though, right? It's being able to, I guess, vote on changes to the platform, but it's more like the entire system is able to vote on it rather than the developers having control. So it's the entire ecosystem. That's, I guess, the true measure of decentralization for them.
Like there is curation, but it's decentralized curation. It's not specific developers that are doing it, but it's the community on the whole, I suppose, that's self-governing.
That's, I think, the goal.
So, I mean, one solution to this that we thought of supporting from the foundation would be to enable people to have different settings for their client, and we feel like there's going to be a curation market where people can say, for instance, this style over here has inappropriate.
Wow. No. I'm going to mute.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. You sound good.
Sorry. What I was saying is that a potential solution for this would be to, from the client that the foundation promotes, enable users to have a filter for content. And what we think is going to happen is different people are going to be curating content. Sort of curation market will emerge, and users are going to be able to set the level of tolerance they would have between potentially objectionable content.
Well, and we already see this kind of with Steam too, like where they have a centralized, I guess, front end to the platform that they're able to filter anything that might be nefarious that way, but everything in the blockchain is still there. But not sure, well, it depends on everything you guys are planning on hosting too, like if it is skin packs or if it is just general like geometry, like what is all going to be kind of immutable and what is going to be customizable?
So say again. So I didn't
No, that was a great
We are
question.
setting up a set of guidelines for that. For content to be delivered swiftly, we are going to ask landowners, at least at the beginning, to set up their creations a low poly aesthetic that will allow the models to be weightless. They can be transferred faster to the network. But other than that, we are trying to keep it as open as possible so that anybody can create whatever they want in their land.
So the geometry being like, it would be stored in IPFS and with the blockchain, but the skin on the polygons, would that be kind of immutable as well, or can I put up whatever wallpaper I want for my client and then like is that data, I guess, is it immutable or is it customizable? It's like where does that line get drawn? I know at the to keep things simple and light, yeah, it'd start with just 4 basic walls and right angles, but over time people could draw really interesting things, I'm sure, with just polygons.
Yeah, I guess what we are hoping to see is the evolution of the web. And I don't know if you remember, but when the web started, the websites were actually very basic, and later came JavaScript and other tags, and the capabilities of the web were increasing over time. So we expect to see an evolution similar to that in Decentraland. We are going to propose a basic aesthetic and the underlying open standard for describing content inside the world, and we'll hear what the community is saying. If everyone calls for the need of a scripting language, we'll start the discussion about that. If people want to customize the content of other people so you can see, explore Decentraland in a vaporware style in your own client, I think that would be possible as well. So I guess what we're doing here is kicking off the discussion of how to describe and build a world.
Yeah, over time you could have even something like dynamic walls, which are just like a web. You know, like here's my online store, and it's on a wall in my house, and then it becomes a way to like shop in like virtual malls and stuff. So there is that potential yeah, build it out further. I think that was a great analogy that you put there. Any more questions in the room here?
I was just going to say, what I like about your project is that it has the potential to be able to really experiment with governance models that can also have some real-world implications. Like you can have communities trying out different ways of working together and voting and you know, create politics, like decentral politics. Like how do you do that? And then because that's something that I really like about it. So I think, you know, if I think about your project, I think it's also about how do you create an innovation cycle in the governance system as you develop. I think that's something that would be interesting to think about.
Yeah, it creates an environment where we can rapidly test various models and immediately get feedback without having to test on real societal structures.
Yeah.
I know that was something I mentioned to you, like on our own project, doing real estate and blockchain tying together. Is like there's a lot of things we could probably learn from this all digital environment before, you know, implementing it in the real world to see how. Maybe how a better homeowners association could look with a blockchain. All right, well, I don't want to take too much more of your time here, guys. I know it was a great show, or great to have you here and explain the concept. And can you give us, I guess, some details on, you are planning an ICO, I guess, in a couple days here to sell the mana. Any final words?
So the token sale will take place on August 8th, and anyone will be able to participate with Ether or Bitcoin or any altcoin, which is enabled through Shapeshift. And we very look forward to having everyone on board and help with proposals. We actually just announced a sort of a community advisory program where we invited everyone to our GitHub to submit proposals for things they would like to create inside of Decentraland or
thinking about the height of buildings as well, or how is this kind of 2D or 3D? Can you explain more on how you're managing it all?
Yes, so there's no limit on how high your buildings can go. We set with a two-dimensional map because that's how humans have been dealing with land throughout the last couple of millennia. You create a two-dimensional map of the land and you explore it around in a two-dimensional way. There's definitely probably going to be an experiment with how to experiment with the third dimension or other virtual dimensions. But this is our current experiment right now with Decentraland.
Well, and I saw one of the other partnerships you guys have is with Aragorn, which I guess is going to be for kind of governance systems. So a sort of homeowners association set up for your distributed system.
Yes, so Luis from Aragon is also part of the project as an advisor. And we're very aligned with them because we understood this problem that later down the road, people are going to need the tools to have arbitration between neighbors, or and we think that this should be implemented in districts, basically. So each district should create a DAO and decide how the rules of their little district should be.
I'm excited to hear. Or sorry, go ahead, Esteban.
I was just going to mention that land could be owned by contracts. So those contracts could be owned by Aragon organizations that decide how to place the content inside those parcels, which would be a great experiment.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Like, okay, everyone, you're only allowed to use red pixels in this part of town. You know, don't be throwing blue. It's like, yeah, then you can start issuing fees or something. There could be a lot of interesting dynamics that will form. I'm kind of curious of like, is it only to like own land, or is there any benefit of owning a lot of land? Like my farming background immediately has me interested in like, can I have a shitload of cheap land outside of town and then mine mana there or something? Like, is there any elements like that you guys are thinking of?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Could you rephrase?
Is there any way to get mana outside of the crowd sale? Like, if this is going to be a virtual world and people
resource mining is what you're talking about. When you're mining your territory, can you accidentally stumble across some kind of resources underneath that allow you to either build up or build out or exchange for something else?
Yeah, correct.
It's definitely a good incentivized system to get people to want to expand and explore. I mean, it's what made humans want to go and explore new land. So it translates very well into virtual reality, creating that lottery opportunity that maybe you can find some gold and suddenly have a material to work with in this virtual environment.
Well, I can already see, like, early on someone buying a lot of mana and immediately burning it to own a large section of land right near town, and then, you know, sell it off for a higher price in the future.
Or explore the land to find more mana.
Yes, yeah. So I was curious, I guess, mainly.